I was overwhelmed by the size and humbled by the brilliant innovation and technology at CES 2020 that I believe will change the world that we live in. The big surprise to me was I didn't see or hear of any collaboration between what I would call the traditional fitness industry and the juggernaut tech industry that certainly has fitness in its line of fire. I only scratched the surface, but what I did discover we managed to capture on video. So over the next few weeks, we'll release several great interviews with thought leaders, disruptors, and influencers within this rapidly expanding and exciting space. Whilst these well-funded giants could pose a real threat to a lot of the analog style and traditional businesses, I believe with vision and strategic collaboration, it could be a game changer for the companies who embrace this new world. So if you're starting, running, or leading a business and trying to figure out what your customers will be influenced by in the next 5 to 10 years, then check out this episode. Also, if you get the opportunity, I'd recommend exploring the CES or the Consumer Electronics Show 2021. It's in January in Vegas. Make sure you don't get left behind. I hope you enjoy this episode, and please leave a comment, send me a direct message, and let me know what you think of this type of conversation. Thanks for listening. So we're here with Julie from Living in Digital Times, is that correct?
Yes, that's it.
And you're an official CES partner.
Yes.
So what would be good to help me, because I'm sort of new to this whole space, is if you could give me a bit of background on CES and then how the relationship with Living in Digital Times happened. If you can give us all a little bit of a background, both for me and the audience, that'd be great.
Well, it's interesting because CES was mainly known, it came out of Comdex, right? So it used to be that. And then it was mainly known for televisions, audio, radio. You know, CES is produced by the CTA, which is the Consumer Technology Association, which is a trade show that helps write standards. It's a trade organization that helps write standards for electronics. So when they were doing the TVs and the headphones and everything else, it's been 52 years now. So in that time, we have the iPhones, right? We have the cell phones, we had tablets, we had all of these personal devices that were still electronics, but they weren't being covered at the show.
Right.
So my quote-unquote boss, she used to be my friend, you know, she still is my friend, but you know, then I started working for her. But she went to the head of CES, who is Gary Shapiro, who's also the head of CTA, and said, "You're missing a market here. Why don't you let me try this?" And she started with kids and family. And it was just a little area in the North Hall. And they did a couple of years, and it was successful, and people started getting interested, and then there started being more electronics introduced, and then it kept getting bigger. And then she decided she wanted to start some more shows. And so she had kids and family. Somebody from education came in, so it was kind of an ed tech area, and then somebody from senior care came in. It was called Lifelong Tech or something. It was called something else before that, but it ended up being Lifelong Tech. And she wanted to start a sports and fitness area. And so we were gym partners. You know, we met in a gym in New York. We're both from New York. And she said, I was an out-of-work actor at the time, but a gym rat. And she said, you know, I want you to start this show. And I said, what is sports and fitness tech? What does that even mean? She goes, you know, we don't actually know yet, but you and I, we're going to figure it out. So that's it.
You know, the word fitness and wellness and tech, it's talked about a lot, both, you know, in the media, and I suppose I come from what I would class as the sort of traditional fitness industry, which is health clubs and personal trainers and fitness equipment. And I've come here this week, and I've seen this whole new world that I've never even seen before, all these companies and all these sensors and technology. So with you, I suppose, coming from that and seeing it emerging, how would you define the sort of fitness and technology space from your perspective?
Mind-blowing. You know, the thing is that when we started, right? When we started and it was literally called sports and fitness tech. It's no longer called that. It's called fitness tech.
Right.
So, and it was called digital health. But at some point, everything became so big, right? It started with the step trackers. It started with GPS and apps, and a company called Body Media. Right. Do you remember Body Media?
I don't know.
Okay, it was Ivo Stavorik. He actually invented the Fit Bug. You remember the Fit Bug? So Fit Bug became Body Media, which became Jawbone.
Oh, okay.
And then I don't know where they are now. But anyway, so describing the fitness tech area is like trying to put a handle on what water is. I mean, it really is connected training. It's taking a consumer who wants to be in good shape, but also wants to track how good a shape they're in and what their progress is, right? And that's what everybody wants. They want to know how well they're doing, if there's any results from their workouts. And I think that's the best way to describe fitness tech.
Yeah.
It helps you know if your workouts are actually effective.
Right. And what would you say is driving this? Is it like the big companies like the Apples that are created the iPhones and people are kind of trying to develop things that plug into that, or is it just the development of a lot of these sensors that can do some amazing things now? What would you say has been some of the things that have kind of impacted this explosion that we're seeing?
You know, it's a complicated question. And the reason it's a complicated question is because in the beginning, it was the little companies that were driving it. The bigger companies kept trying to get involved, so then they grouped together and started buying everything. And it was insane. I mean, I lost so many little companies to these huge monsters, and then the monsters started coming in. And I won't even mention their names. I mean, and they were great to work with, but we chased them for so long, and then all of a sudden they were just there. And then they were gone.
Really?
And it's because they got into bidding wars over the little companies.
Right.
And they priced themselves right out of the market. Then they didn't want to put the focus in it.
Right.
So then they went someplace else.
What are some of the lessons then that I guess business in general or people in this space could probably learn from that going forward to make sure? Because I guess there's, you kind of go through trends. Things happen and it gets hot and then it drops off and then suddenly some new ideas come and then it's hot again. So what do you think in the next cycle, both big and small companies could probably learn from what happened, if anything?
It's hard, and I wish my friend Michael Yang was here. He's a venture capitalist who's been in the space for a very long time, and he spoke yesterday, and he talked about how difficult it is to get investors interested now, right? Because you can't just have a great idea. You can't know how to market it. You can't know how to get it produced. That's not interesting to investors anymore.
Really?
Right? So what you have to have something that has actionable results.
How would you define actionable results?
If you saw the summit yesterday, everything was about Peloton.
Right.
Every other word.
Yeah.
Okay, but 5 years ago, every other word was Fitbit.
Okay.
Right? So it's that idea, because that idea is what, and I don't want to call them all copycats, but that's what stems the copycat. So right now it's Peloton that's moving the fitness industry forward.
Right.
And you're getting the big guys coming back in again.
Right. And when that's happening then, I'm trying to sort of process the idea then. So someone comes up with a great idea, a lot of people chuck a load of money at it, on its potential for this to be the next great thing. A bunch of copycats come and then suddenly it grows again and then they realize actually it wasn't a good idea and then it's like, what's next? Is that sort of what tends to happen?
That's the trend I keep seeing,
Yeah.
But to be fair, Fitbit, which knocked out a lot of other trackers in the process, right? I mean, that really did grow to be a phenomenon, right? Because not only did that idea of counting your steps catch on, but then kind of the whole smartwatch. The original smartwatch didn't count your steps. The Martian?
Right.
It didn't count your steps in the beginning. And so then but that became something that it had to do. The smartwatch had to take on that wellness factor.
Yeah. But one of the things I see as a very small company compared to a lot of these is that you can come up, and I've seen a bunch on the show floor, you can come up with a great idea, really great idea, but it seems as though, and you probably have to raise quite a bit of money to sort of get the idea going and then to market that idea about this is what you need. And then I suppose in this sort of tech space where there's so much money and I guess muscle behind it, that unless you can quickly scale up to be significant, that you're almost like just taken out straight away is what I see. And I suppose as a small company, like you say, you've got to get investment to get to that level. And then if some type of technology changes where it's no longer Bluetooth, it's red tooth as an example, then all of that investment that is just gone because someone else bigger who's got the audience.
Who's got the audience has done it. I'll give you a really good example of that. There's a company out right now, Instabeat. Do you know them?
No.
Okay, Instabeat is a great company. It's an attachment, and I hope I get this description right, but it's an attachment in your goggles that does real-time tracking. Well, nobody was of swimming. Okay. I'm sorry, I missed the swimming part. That helps, doesn't it? But it's real-time tracking of swimming, which nobody else does. And it's a young woman, a former professional swimmer who founded this company. And she has a group of investors, but they're not really moving the product forward. And I can't get her here because they think it's too expensive, right? But she's not catching on. Now, there's a company from way back in my old days, Recon Instruments. Did you know them?
No.
Canadian company. They founded the first screen, the first smart glasses, but it was a ski mask, ski goggles. And you got a little window with your stats in it, right? And that was in 2010 or 11 or something. They were early. And they were around forever until Intel bought them, right? So they have a new company now. It's called Form. Guess what it does? They're swim goggles with the screen in it, so they're tracking again. So that's an example of once you have the idea, you have to go.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't, you're going to get eaten because there are no new ideas.
Right.
None.
No.
Yeah.
And do you think in some cases, I suppose as tempting as it could be with someone to write you a big check, that when that happens, in some cases, if it's not core business, it can just get pushed to the side.
It's not, you can't just take the big check. You have to have a partnership with those people so that they are really interested in investing their time and energy into it, not just writing the check.
Yeah.
And interested in seeing how far it can go.
Yeah. And what do you think about the competition? Because I guess also if you are a lone ranger with this great idea, do you think it's good to encourage, lots of versions? I know you call them copycats, but to create a sort of a space, a category. I noticed downstairs.
No, I didn't call them copycats.
Okay.
I didn't know how else to.
Yeah.
I didn't know how else to describe it. And yes, I think so because you want. Okay, so So Peloton started with me when they were a startup, right? And so now we have them everywhere, and I think even Technogym's getting into it, right? But they're not copycats because they are taking somebody else's idea and growing it and growing the space. Mixed fitness, it's a different form of a bike that streams classes. They have online classes, but they also have a screen that tilts down so that you can do the floor exercises or do the weights so that you're not, you don't have to hold your phone up well, I usually just project it on Apple TV. It works just as well too, because I am one of those Peloton freaks. But so they take the idea and they make it something else.
Make it better.
Yeah.
Or evolve the idea.
Different, or a different price point.
Right.
Pelotons aren't for everybody because, let's face it, that's a little pricey.
Yeah.
So you come in and if you talk to Echelon Fit, right?
Yeah.
That's almost. That's a great bike, but it's pretty much like the Peloton, but it's less expensive because you can add your own features into it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I looking downstairs, when I'm talking to people, that seems to be, again, a big thing.
Sleep tech.
Yeah, sleep tech.
We have been talking about sleep tech for so long. It just, the Apple Watch does not track your sleep.
Yeah.
A lot of watches don't track your sleep. And I think what has to happen in that space is they have to figure out another way. And I think they started it. I mean, Misfit started it with something you put under your bed that would, figure it out. Or now they're trying to put you to sleep. I'm like, I don't sleep. I don't think
Certainly
I've
not when you're organizing the event.
I haven't slept since 2009. But, it's an important thing. But I don't know. It's growing pretty rapidly, and I think Sleep Number probably has the market share.
Really?
I think so.
And
If Philips also has a product, and there you go. Philips, look at them. They're everywhere. They got their hand in everything.
Yeah. So do you see the same thing emerging with that sleep and recovery?
Recovery is a big thing.
Right.
Recovery is a huge thing, and you can talk to First Beat about recovery a little
Who's
bit.
that?
First Beat.
First Beat. Okay.
Yeah, it's a Finnish company and works with a lot of athletes. And Jaybird, a few years ago, the guy who originally started Jaybird, he tried to come up with a band that when you woke up, it told you what your workout should be that day.
Right.
Because if you're not recovered, if you haven't gotten enough sleep, or you're not rested, or you worked out too hard yesterday, it would tell you that you wanted to take something else today, or you didn't work out hard enough. It's like earn your sweat. You didn't earn your sweat yesterday. You need to do it today. But tracking that kind of information, when somebody figures that out, that's going to take us to the next level.
Right. So what about data? All of these sensors and devices are collecting a lot of information that people are then putting together or writing algorithms to sort of predict and assume information that's going out to apps and watches and stuff like that. How do you see that moving forward? Do you see it that the Googles, the Amazons, and the Apples are the ones that are going to pull all that together and own it and decide what happens, or do you see that the smaller companies can use that to their advantage? What's your view on all this data that's being collected through these types of devices and pooled?
And this is my view.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
Completely mine, not living in digital times, not CES. It's just that all of this data that's being collected, there has to be a killer app that pulls it all together and makes the actual use from it, and it hasn't been invented yet.
Really?
So I don't know where it's going to come from, but if I had to take my guess, I would say that's what Google is working on.
Really?
I do, yes. I truly believe that. I was not surprised that Google bought Fitbit, not one little bit. And I believe that that's what they're doing, which is hopefully will happen on the good side of things, right? Google's a good company, but that kind of information, it's a lot. It's a powerful tool.
That's right. So where's the place for smaller companies? And when I say small, I'm comparing it against a Google, which is a monster business. Where's the place for smaller companies and entrepreneurs to play based on the fact that it all seems to end? There's a couple of places it ends, and there's only 2 or 3 or 4 of those. What should other people do that are thinking about coming into the fitness tech space, creating products, inventing products? Should they be, where should they be looking? Should they be looking at what the big companies are doing and trying to sort of build on the back of that? What's your thoughts? Because you've seen this happen lots of times, and people succeed and fail. And how would you predict that or advise that if you could?
You have to find your own niche. I don't think that you can grow a company based on somebody else's idea. I think you have to find your own technology, your own thoughts, and then that's the next big idea. That's what everybody wants, right?
Yeah. And does it have to kind of still, would you say, align to what's happening with those guys?
No. Look at Peloton. What did Peloton align with? Except cycling classes, right? that's where they got their idea. So you want to look at the market and you want to look at what's out there and how maybe you can improve on that with an additional idea.
Mm-hmm. In terms of predictions, and I know it's always difficult, but it's things to look out for in the next few years in this, again, fitness tech space. Are there trends? We talked about sleep, we talked about recovery. Are there any things that you would say, keep an eye on this, narrow down all this stuff that's around, and keep an eye on these few areas? And I just a few things to sort of that I've seen. I've seen the kind of the garment with wearables. I've seen going away from devices to sort of patches, and I've even seen sort of edible, what do they call them, sensors that people are figuring out what's going on inside your body. Where would you say are things that you think keep a lookout, because that's likely to kind of go off in the next 5 to 10 years?
So are we talking about the consumer or the athlete?
Probably both. Yes, cover both of them.
I think where we're going to see a lot of growth is the connected coaching, the AI, the even probably combined with the virtual reality. Whereas you have a bodysuit that it's already there. It's just a matter of figuring out how to make it comfortable. Did you talk to a sensei at all?
No, no.
Yeah, so
who should we talk to?
Stephen Webster,
okay.
Sensei. But they have a bodysuit that has the sensors, and they have the app, right? You always have to have the app. The app that gives you the connected coaching in your ear, right? So I think that once they figure out how to make that more comfortable, that's going to be the trend for fitness wear, is to have something that actually is able to coach you along as you're going.
Right. And would that apply for both the athlete and the consumer, would you say?
Yeah, I think that definitely applies to both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about in terms of, as well as being able to sort of show you what's going on, what about sort of take that information and then tell you what to do next, or is that the sort of same?
No,
Okay.
Actually, that's exactly what a sensei is all about.
Right.
And I think he's coined the term. So Stephen's term, connected coaching.
Okay.
So it sees what you're doing and what you need to do next.
Right. And do you see there being opportunities for people to then, if you wanted to build something, particularly on the content side, if you're a fitness expert or whatever, be able to use some of that type of technology now that's in garments, for example, and then for you to put your contents into that so that people can learn from you as a coach, do you think?
Yes, I do. I think that everybody has to work together, and I made this perfectly clear yesterday. Everybody has to work together to find that overall use for fitness and wearable technology.
Yeah.
And it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah, I would agree with that, because certainly, again, coming from the world I'm from, there's real experts in terms of seeing a physical person in front of them and doing a real consultation and really understanding what needs to be done. We spoke about it earlier, and then putting together some recommendations, whether it's nutrition or workout. A lot of the companies here that have had some fantastic technology, and there's some, a lot of scientists that are working behind this, but then they're kind of almost saying, well, we need to find someone to give us the content based on what these devices are telling us to do.
Exactly.
And I suppose my takeaway is, well, probably these two areas need to kind of merge somehow, because yes, you can be a great tech company, but you're not necessarily a...
Exactly, and that's how they've moved, fashion tech forward.
Really?
Is because they've put together designers and engineers.
Okay.
Not all wearable tech fashion designers can do all the engineering. Look at Cute Circuit. That's a couple. Ryan and Francesca. Francesca's the designer. Ryan's the engineer, although he also is a pretty good designer. But they work together to create the next step, right? And I think that collaboration for fitness is really important. And one of the things that I think is holding back, or had been holding back, fitness technology for a while was the lack of adaptation. Is that the right word? Yes, lack of adaptation from personal trainers and health clubs.
Really?
Yes.
Why do you think that is then?
because they saw it as a threat. All of these home gyms, they thought they were going to put them out of business. Trainers thought the trackers or AI was going to replace them, and it's not true. And so they really need to understand that.
Yeah.
And I've been to URSA, I've been to IdeaFit, and it's amazing to me the lack of technology.
Yeah. Yeah, I was.
And who's doing it? The boutique fitness companies.
Right. And what have you seen what have you noticed from the boutiques? What do you think they're doing?
They're doing a lot of tracking of their customers. They're doing some video libraries, some online things. They're trying to utilize or try to figure out how to utilize their database or their payment systems to keep their customer base.
Yeah.
They've just started touching on it. I was talking to Matt from IntelliVideo. He's really into the boutique fitness space, but they need to do more. But yeah, they're starting at least.
Yeah. That's certainly for me. We met a few people, I guess, that I worked with, other businesses that were here, and they had a small get-together a couple of nights ago, and Emmett from My Zone, and he said
you saw Emmett?
Yeah.
I'm sorry I missed him.
Yeah, he was here, and Emma Barry as well, and
yeah, I saw Emma.
Yeah, and they were saying, they managed to get together about 11 people. It was a relatively small group, which is kind of why we're here and we want to cover this.
Right.
But a relatively small group, and yet, when you see kind of how much is happening and that this is really where things are at, as you said, it's surprising that there's not more collaboration. I suppose the worry is if that doesn't happen, then I suppose this traditional side of the industry is likely to drop away. But then there seems to be so much to add in terms of quality and or good quality information that a lot of these businesses really need to be able to be credible in some ways, because like I say, we interviewed a bunch of people, and you can tell you're not talking to fitness experts. They're tech experts. I don't even understand some of the stuff they're talking about, but I know what the technology does, and putting those together kind of gives you a whole new world that it doesn't even exist at the moment.
Right, I agree. And it needs to happen soon. But a lot of the companies that have started with athletes, whether they're triathlons or swimmers, or a lot of the companies do start with athletes. The head of Polar US, Tom Fowler. Did you talk with him?
No.
Oh, you should talk
I've
with him.
got so many people, but after listening to you, that I feel really out of touch with things.
Well, don't. But Polar was the first heart rate monitor. It's a Finnish company, but they have a U.S. base with their watches and other training equipment. And Tom was a professional rower, I don't know, but he was a professional athlete and stayed in those companies. I mean, I think a lot of these fitness companies are coming from athletes, and so if you take an athlete and match him with a tech geek, you got the same thing you had in fashion tech. It's the marriage of geeks and what's it called? What did I say? Marriage of geeks and chic or something. I don't know.
Geeks and chic.
Yeah.
I've certainly learnt a lot from this, and I could talk to you all afternoon, but well, maybe another time. So
yeah, definitely, we should.
Thank you so much. And just in terms of links and websites and that, then, so you said the Living in Digital Times is currently available.
Yes.
So you can go there.
And sportsandfitnesstech.com.
Sportsandfitnesstech.com.
And wearabletechnologysummit.com.
Right. And when is that wearable tech? Is that part of this now, or is that separate?
Yes. Yeah, that could go on for another hour.
Okay. Well, we'll keep that for a part 2 then. Just keep checking in on that. May happen at some point. So, okay, Julie. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. That's been wonderful.
Yeah,
thanks.
It was really nice.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. If you did, then please go over to iTunes and subscribe to the Escape Your Limits podcast. Leave a review, leave a comment. It really would help us a lot to continue to keep these going.